The morning started like any other in the Terran Diplomatic Corps building. Captain Lee Tae-ho sat at his desk, reviewing trade agreements with the Viridian colonies. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. Numbers and shipping schedules filled his screen. Boring but important work that kept peace between humans and aliens. Dr. Park Sora walked into his office carrying a thick folder. Her face looked worried, which was unusual. Sora always stayed calm, even when dealing with the most difficult alien languages. She had spent 15 years learning how to talk to 12 different species. If something bothered her, it was serious. "Tae-ho, we have a problem," she said, sitting down across from his desk. "The Council is really angry about the mining rights dispute on Kepler 442b. They think we're being too aggressive." Tae-ho looked up from his screen. The dispute had been going on for months. Humans had found valuable minerals on a planet they thought was empty. Then the Krillians claimed they had seen it first. The whole thing was stupid, but politics often were. "How angry?" he asked. "Chancellor Thexmore called humans violent primitives in yesterday's session. Admiral Vorthak said we don't deserve to be part of civilized society." Sora opened her folder and pulled out several translated documents. "It's getting worse every day." Before Tae-ho could respond, his communication device started beeping. The sound meant an urgent message from the Galactic Council. He pressed the accept button, and a hologram appeared above his desk. The image showed Chancellor Thexmore, the leader of the Viridian species. His blue skin looked darker than usual, and his 4 eyes stared directly at the camera. Behind him stood representatives from other council species. Admiral Vorthak's red scales gleamed under the bright lights. The insect-like Zephyrians clicked their mandibles in what Tae-ho knew was disapproval. "This message is directed to all human governments and organizations," Thexmore began. His voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "The Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's place in our civilization." Tae-ho felt his stomach drop. Sora leaned forward, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. After careful consideration of recent events, including humanity's aggressive expansion and disregard for established protocols, we have concluded that your species is not ready for membership in civilized galactic society. The words hit like a physical blow. Tae-ho had worked for 20 years to build relationships with alien species. He had learned their customs, respected their traditions, and tried to find common ground even when it seemed impossible. Therefore, Thexmore continued, effective immediately, humanity is hereby severed from all galactic communications, trade agreements, and diplomatic relations. Human ships are banned from entering Council space. Any attempt to contact Council members will be considered an act of aggression. Admiral Vorthak stepped forward. His warriors' training showed in every movement. Human colonies and outposts in disputed territories must be evacuated within 30 days. After that time, they will be considered abandoned and open for colonization by Council species. This decision is final and non-negotiable, Thexmore added. We suggest humanity use this time to develop more civilized behaviors. Perhaps in a few centuries, you will be ready to join the galaxy's advanced species. Until then, do not attempt contact. The hologram disappeared, leaving Tae-ho and Sora sitting in shocked silence. The office felt too quiet after the formal pronouncement. Outside the window, normal life continued. People walked on the sidewalks below, unaware that their species had just been cut off from the rest of the galaxy. "They can't be serious," Sora whispered. "Over a mining dispute? We've been part of the council for 40 years. Tae-ho stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out before him, full of humans going about their daily lives. In the distance, he could see the spaceport where alien ships had landed just yesterday. Soon those landing pads would be empty. "They are serious," he said, "and they have the power to make it stick." The next few hours passed in a blur of emergency meetings and frantic phone calls. Every human diplomatic post in the galaxy received the same message. Trade routes that had operated for decades were shut down overnight. Alien ambassadors packed their belongings and left Earth without saying goodbye. Engineer Kim Woo-jin arrived at the diplomatic building just as the alien ships were leaving. Tae-ho had called him because Kim understood alien technology better than anyone. If humanity was going to survive alone, they would need his knowledge. "I saw the news broadcasts," Kim said as he entered Tae-ho's office. "The whole galaxy is talking about it. Some species think the council went too far, but they won't say so publicly." "What are our options?" Tae-ho asked. Kim sat down and pulled out a small device. It looked like a normal tablet, but Tae-ho knew it contained detailed scans of alien technology that Kim had been studying for years. "We have two choices," Kim said. "We can beg for forgiveness and hope they change their minds, or we can prepare to stand on our own." Sora looked at both men. "The council species think we're primitive. They believe we'll destroy ourselves or fade away without their guidance. Maybe that's exactly what we should let them think," Kim said quietly. Tae-ho turned from the window. "What do you mean?" "I've been working on something. A project I kept secret because I wasn't sure it would work." Kim activated his device, and technical drawings filled the air above it. "I call it Project Echo. We can develop our own technology better than anything the Council has." "That's impossible," Sora said. "They're centuries ahead of us." Kim smiled, for the first time that day. "They think they are, but they've become lazy, depending on old technology and old ways of thinking. Humans are different. We adapt, we innovate, we find new solutions to old problems." The three humans sat in the quiet office as darkness fell outside. Around them, their entire civilization was being cut off from the galaxy. But in that moment, something new was being born. The Council had intended to silence humanity. Instead, they had given them the greatest gift possible: the freedom to become something unprecedented. That night, as alien ships left Earth for the last time, Kim Woo-jin began working on technologies that would change everything. He didn't know it yet, but his Project Echo would eventually make the mighty Galactic Council tremble with fear. 25 years had passed since the galaxy went silent. Dr. Choi Min-ho stood in his laboratory, staring at the machine that would change everything. The device looked simple enough: just a collection of metal panels and glowing crystals arranged in a perfect circle. But what it could do was extraordinary. "Are you sure this will work?" asked his assistant, a young woman named Lee Soo-jin, who had never seen an alien in her life. She belonged to a generation that grew up in the silence, knowing the galaxy existed, but never being part of it. "I'm sure," Minho replied, his fingers dancing over the control panel. "We've tested it 100 times on smaller scales. Today we make contact with the observatory station on Alpha Centauri." The machine hummed to life. Unlike the alien communication systems that had once connected humanity to the galaxy, this one used principles that Minho had discovered himself. It bent space and time in ways that the Council species had never imagined. More importantly, it was completely invisible to their detection methods. On the other side of the laboratory, screens flickered to life. Images from across the galaxy appeared, alien worlds, space stations, and massive ships that belonged to the Council species. For 25 years, humanity had been watching in secret, learning and preparing. "Connection established," Soo-jin announced. "We're receiving data from all monitoring stations." Minho smiled. Project Echo had grown far beyond Kim Woo-jin's original vision. What started as one man's secret project had become humanity's greatest achievement. Hidden bases throughout human space now watched every move the alien species made. The data that flowed across the screens told an interesting story. The Galactic Council was falling apart. The unity that had once banned humanity from the galaxy was cracking like old stone. In another part of the facility, Admiral Song Ji-won reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Her hair had gone gray during the years of silence, but her eyes remained sharp. The shipyards under her command had built vessels unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Show me the Viridian situation again," she said to her aide, Commander Park Dong-min. The holographic display changed to show the Viridian home system. 3 massive fleets faced each other in tense standoff. The Viridians were fighting with their former allies, the Krillians, over territories that had once belonged to humans. "It started 6 months ago," Dong-min explained. "The Viridians found rich mining deposits in the Tau Ceti system. The Krillians claimed the area was promised to them when they divided up human space." Ji-won studied the tactical display. Both fleets were using outdated technology, ships that moved slowly and communicated on frequencies that human sensors could easily intercept. "What about the civilian populations?" she asked. "Caught in the middle. Over 3 billion Aurelians live in that sector. The peaceful species can't defend themselves if fighting breaks out." Ji-won felt a familiar anger rise in her chest. The Council had called humans violent and primitive, but they were the ones threatening billions of innocent lives over mining rights. Intelligence Officer Yoon Da-eun entered the command center, carrying a data pad. Her specialty was monitoring alien communications, a job that had become much more interesting in recent years. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said, handing over the device. "We intercepted a message from Chancellor. Thanks more to Admiral Vorthak. They're planning something big." Ji-won read the translated message. Her expression grew darker with each line. "They want to exterminate the Aurelians completely. claim their worlds are strategically necessary for the war effort. There's more, Dayun continued. 7 other council species are taking sides. The Mindari scholars are trying to stay neutral, but the Zephyrians are mobilizing their war fleets. If this escalates, we could see galactic civil war. On the other side of the facility, scientist Kang Hye-jin made a discovery that would prove even more important than Minho's communication breakthrough. She had been studying the neural patterns of human volunteers, comparing them to alien brain scans that had been collected during the diplomatic years. "This is remarkable," she told her research partner, Dr. Nam Jun-ho. "Look at these patterns." The screen showed 2 brain scans side by side. One belonged to a human test subject, the other to a Viridian diplomat from the old records. "Human neural pathways are incredibly flexible," Hye-jin explained. "We can adapt to use almost any technology, no matter which species created it. But look at the Viridian scan. Their thoughts follow rigid patterns. They can only use their own technology effectively." Jun-ho leaned closer to examine the data. "Are you saying humans can interface with alien technology better than the aliens themselves?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. And it gets better." Hye-jin switched to another display showing test results from the past month. "We tested volunteers with captured Krillian, Zephyrian, and Mindari technology. In every case, humans adapted faster and used the systems more efficiently than their original creators." The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just survived the silence. They had evolved beyond what anyone thought possible. In the Yasi Presidential Palace, President Nam Yoon-ji reviewed reports from around the globe. The isolation had transformed human society in unexpected ways. Without alien trade and technology to depend on, humans had been forced to become completely self-sufficient. Crime rates had dropped to historic lows. Education had improved dramatically as people focused on learning and innovation. The environment had healed as humanity developed clean technologies that didn't depend on alien resources. "Madam President," her secretary announced, "Captain Lee, Tae-ho is here for his appointment." Tae-ho entered the office looking much older than his years. The diplomat who had received the council's final message had spent 25 years preparing for the day humanity might rejoin the galaxy. "The situation is getting worse out there," he reported. "Our monitoring stations are detecting weapon buildups across 12 star systems. If the council species go to war, millions of civilians will die." Yoon-ji nodded grimly. "Dr. Park So-ra sent me her latest analysis. The moderate species are being forced to choose sides. The ones who might have welcomed us back are now too afraid to act." "We have the power to stop this," Tae-ho said quietly. "Admiral Song's fleet could end the conflict in days." "And then what? Rule the galaxy through fear? Become the thing they accused us of being?" Tae-ho was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, children played in parks that had been built during the years of silence. They laughed and ran without knowing that their world possessed weapons that could shatter planets. "Maybe," he said finally, "it's time to show them what humanity really learned during these 25 years. President Yoon-ji looked at the man who had witnessed humanity's exile from the galaxy. In his eyes, she saw not anger or desire for revenge, but something that the Council species had never expected from the violent primitives they had abandoned. She saw wisdom. The war had begun 3 months ago, and already the galaxy was burning. Admiral Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Silence Breaker, watching through the view screen as a Viridian colony burned on the planet below. The ship was invisible to alien sensors using technology that bent light around its hull like water around a stone. How many survivors? He asked Navigator Oh Soo-jin, who monitored the planet's surface with equipment the Council species couldn't even detect. Maybe 2,000 left in the underground shelters, she replied, her voice tight with controlled anger. The Krillian bombardment killed over 8 million civilians yesterday. Communications specialist Jang Hyun-woo looked up from his station. Sir, we're receiving emergency broadcasts from 17 different worlds. They're all asking for help that won't come. Tae-ho had seen enough dead worlds in the past 3 months to last several lifetimes. The war between the Viridians and Krillians had spread like fire through dry grass. Other Council species had chosen sides or tried to stay neutral, but neutrality meant nothing when entire star systems became battlegrounds. The Zephyrians had joined the Krillians, their insect swarms attacking Viridian supply lines. The proud Draconian Empire had allied with the Viridians, their massive ships bringing destruction wherever they went. Smaller species like the Aurelians and Mindari found themselves trapped between the warring giants. Take us to the Mindari. System, Tae-ho ordered. Intel reports say they're under attack. The Silence Breaker moved through space faster than any Council ship could travel. Human technology had advanced so far during the silent years that their vessels seemed to break the laws of physics. They could cross distances in hours that took alien ships days to cover. When they arrived at the Mindari homeworld, they found chaos. Krillian war fleets surrounded the planet while Viridian ships tried to break through the blockade. In between, civilian transports burned as they tried to escape the fighting. The Mindari are trying to evacuate their libraries, Soo-jin reported. They're the galaxy's greatest scholars. If their knowledge is lost, Tae-ho watched a Mindari transport explode under Krillian fire. Thousands of years of accumulated wisdom died in that flash of light. The beings who had once voted to exile humanity were now paying the price for their leaders' arrogance. Record everything, he told Hyun-woo. Every ship destroyed, every life lost. Make sure Earth sees what the Council's unity has created. On Earth, Dr. Park Sora sat in her office, reviewing the reports that came in daily from human observation ships scattered across the galaxy. At 73, she moved slowly, but her mind remained sharp. The woman who had once translated alien languages now studied the communications of species destroying each other. Her current project was analyzing intercepted messages from moderate council members, aliens who had begun to question the war, but were too afraid to speak publicly. Their private communications told a story of growing horror at what their civilization had become. Professor Park? Her assistant, a young man named Kim Tae-won, entered carrying a data tablet. We've received something unusual. It's addressed specifically to you. Sora took the tablet and read the message. Her eyes widened as she recognized the sender's identification codes. "This is from Mindthara, the Mindari philosopher. I debated with her at the council 26 years ago." The message was brief, but desperate. "Honored Dr. Park, if you still live, please know that some of us remember your wisdom. The galaxy burns while leaders play games of power. Many species now regret the silence imposed upon humanity. We pray your people survived what we have done. If there is mercy in your hearts, the innocent need help that only the forgotten can provide." Sora stared at the screen for a long time. Mindthara had been one of the aliens who voted to exile humanity. Now she was begging for the help of the species she had helped cast out. In the shipyards of Luna Station, Admiral Song Ji-won watched the final preparations on humanity's newest vessel. The ship was called New Dawn, and it represented everything humans had learned during their isolation. Its weapons could destroy fleets, its shields could stop any known attack, and its speed made it impossible to catch or escape from. Commander Park Dong-min approached with the latest intelligence reports. "Admiral, the situation is getting worse. The Krillians have started using biological weapons against Aurelian colonies. They're wiping out entire populations." Ji-won felt sick. The Aurelians were peaceful, plant-like beings who had never hurt anyone. Their only crime was living on worlds that the Krillians wanted to control. "What about Chancellor Thexmore?" she asked. "Still alive, but his government is collapsing. Half the Viridian military has turned against him. They're fighting a civil war while trying to fight the Krillians." The reports painted a picture of total chaos. The galaxy that had once seemed so advanced and civilized was tearing itself apart. The same species that had called humans violent primitives were now committing acts of barbarism that humanity had abandoned centuries ago. In the presidential palace on Earth, President Nam Yoon-ji faced the most difficult decision in human history. Her advisors were divided. Some wanted to remain hidden and let the galaxy burn. Others argued that humanity had a moral duty to intervene. "Madam President," said General Hwang Min-woo, "if we reveal ourselves now, we risk everything. The council species might unite against us again." "If we don't act," replied Dr. Choi Min-ho, "we'll watch billions of innocent beings die. Is that who we want to be?" Yoon-ji looked at the reports spread across her desk. Images of burning worlds, refugee ships under attack, entire species facing extinction. The Council had exiled humanity to teach them a lesson about civilization. Instead, they had created something far more advanced than they could imagine. "The Aurelian colonies will be completely destroyed within days," said Intelligence Director Lee Sang-hoon. "The Krillians have already started extermination protocols on 3 worlds. And the Mindari libraries are under direct attack," added Cultural Minister Park Hae-young. "If they're destroyed, the galaxy will lose thousands of years of knowledge and art." Yoon-ji stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of the city where humans lived in peace and prosperity. They had built a perfect society during their isolation, free from the violence and hatred that now consumed the galaxy. but perfection meant nothing if it was built on the suffering of others. "Contact Admiral Song," she said finally. "Tell her to prepare the fleet, and send a message to Captain Lee Tae-ho. It's time for humanity to break its silence." Far across the galaxy, alien civilians huddled in shelters as their worlds burned around them. They had no idea that help was coming from the species their leaders had abandoned decades ago. The forgotten humans were about to remind the galaxy what true civilization looked like. The Aurelian colony of Harmony's Rest had been peaceful for 300 years. The plant-like beings who lived there spent their days tending gardens and creating beautiful art from living wood. They had no weapons, no military, and no way to defend themselves when the Krillian Death Fleet arrived. Admiral Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Talon, watching as his ships surrounded the defenseless world. His red scales gleamed under the harsh lights as he prepared to give the order that would end millions of innocent lives. "Sir," reported his weapons officer, "all ships are in position. The orbital bombardment can begin at your command." Vorthak smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The Aurelians had made the mistake of living on a world rich in rare minerals. In wartime, sentiment meant nothing. Resources were everything. "Begin the extermination," he ordered. The Krillian ships powered, their weapons, energy beams capable of burning entire continents charged to full power. On the planet below, Aurelian families held each other close, knowing death was coming and unable to stop it. Then something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to tear open as ships materialized from nowhere. They were sleek and silver, moving, with a grace that no council species had ever achieved. Their hulls reflected the light of the system's star like mirrors made of liquid metal. "Unknown vessels," Vorthak's communications officer stammered. "They just appeared. Our sensors show nothing, but they're right there." The lead human ship was 3 times larger than the Krillian flagship. Commander Bae Jong-soo stood on its bridge, his face calm despite the rage burning in his heart. He had spent months watching alien species destroy each other. Today, humanity would show the galaxy what real strength looked like. "Open all channels," he ordered. "Let every ship in this system hear what comes next." The human fleet spread out around the Krillian forces like hunters surrounding prey. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if the ships were controlled by a single mind. In reality, human technology allowed their crews to share thoughts and reactions faster than any alien species could imagine. "This is Commander Bae Jong-soo of the Terran Federation." His voice echoed across every communication system in the star system. "You are ordered to withdraw from Aurelian space immediately." Admiral Vorthak laughed, the sound harsh and ugly. "Humans? Impossible. Your pathetic species was exiled decades ago. You're probably dead by now." "We are very much alive," Jong-soo replied, "and we're giving you one chance to leave peacefully." "I have 50 ships," Vorthak snarled. "You have 12. Even if you survived your exile, you're still using primitive technology. Surrender now, and I might let some of you live." Jong-soo's response was simple. "No, The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The human ships moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They dodged Krillian weapons fire as if they could see the future. Their own weapons cut through alien shields like hot knives through paper. Advanced energy beams and projectiles that bent space itself tore the Krillian fleet apart. The Blood Talon, Admiral Vorthak's mighty flagship, tried to ram the human command ship. Jongsu's vessel simply stepped sideways through dimensions, appearing behind the Krillian ship and crippling it with a single shot. Within minutes, the entire Krillian death fleet was destroyed or disabled. Not a single human ship had even been scratched. The galaxy watched in shocked silence as the impossible happened. Humans, the species that had been cast out as violent primitives, had just saved an entire world using technology that seemed like magic. On the planet below, millions of Aurelian families looked up at the sky in wonder. The ships that had come to kill them were gone, replaced by silver guardians they didn't recognize but somehow trusted. Jongsu opened communications to the planet. People of Harmony's Rest, you are safe. No one will harm you while we are here. Thurain. Response came from Armilan, the oldest and wisest of the Aurelian philosophers. His voice shook with emotion as he spoke. Who are you, noble strangers? What species shows such mercy to those they do not know? We are humans, Jongsu replied, and we believe that civilization means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species, every government, every individual with access to communications heard the same impossible story. Humans had returned, and they were more powerful than anyone had dreamed. Ambassador Xin Yu-ri sat in her office on the flagship, New Dawn, preparing for the most important broadcast in human history. She was young for such a responsibility, but she had been chosen because she understood alien cultures better than anyone of her generation. Are we ready? She asked her communications team. All frequencies are open, replied technician Oh Min-seok. Every inhabited world in the galaxy will hear this message. Yuri took a deep breath and began to speak. Citizens of the galaxy, this is Ambassador Shin Yuri of the Terran Federation. 26 years ago, your leaders decided that humanity was too violent and primitive to share the stars with you. They were wrong about our nature, but they were right about one thing. We were not ready then. We are ready now. Her words echoed across 1,000 worlds. In the ruins of Viridian cities, refugees stopped their desperate flight to listen. On Krillian warships, soldiers questioned orders they had never doubted before. In the archives of the Mindari, scholars who had thought humans extinct wept with joy and shame. We offer sanctuary to any being who renounces violence against civilians, Yuri continued. Your species, your past actions, your government's choices, none of that matters. If you seek peace, you will find it in human space. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Refugee ships began changing course, heading toward human territories that had been forbidden for decades. Military vessels abandoned their missions to escort civilian transports to safety. Even some council warships broke formation to protect the innocent rather than continue fighting. On the Mindari homeworld, Minthara listened to the human message with tears flowing down her face. She remembered the young Dr. Park Sora, who had tried so hard to build bridges between species. The humans had kept that dream alive even after being abandoned. She opened a communication channel to Earth, not knowing if anyone would answer. Dr. Park, if you can hear this, please know that some of us never stopped believing in your people's goodness. We were fools to cast you out. Can you ever forgive us? The response came quickly, in a voice she recognized despite the years that had passed. Minthara, old friend, we forgave you long ago. The question now is whether we can work together to heal what has been broken. Admiral Song Ji-won commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled. 200 ships of incredible power moved through space toward the heart of the old council territories. But they came not as conquerors, but as healers. Every ship carried medical supplies, food, and construction equipment. Human engineers worked alongside alien refugees to rebuild destroyed cities. Human doctors treated wounded beings regardless of what species had caused their injuries. On her flagship, Ji-won received reports from across the galaxy. The war was ending not through victory or defeat, but through exhaustion and shame. Species that had fought each other for months laid down their weapons when they saw humans treating all beings with equal compassion. "Admiral," reported Captain Kim Young-ho, "we have a problem. Chancellor Thexmore is requesting a meeting. He wants to negotiate a ceasefire." Ji-won smiled grimly. The proud Viridian leader who had cast humanity out was now begging for their help to end the war he had helped create. "Tell him we'll meet," she said, "but not to negotiate, to accept his surrender." The Great Hall of New Geneva Station had been built during humanity's years of silence. It was simple and elegant, with walls of polished metal and large windows that showed the stars beyond. There were no thrones, no raised platforms, no symbols of power. Just a circular table with comfortable chairs arranged around it. President Nam Eun-ji stood at one of the windows, watching as the surviving leaders of the Galactic Council arrived. Their ships looked ancient and battered compared to the sleek human vessels that escorted them. Many of the alien leaders had never seen human technology up close. Now they traveled in ships that could have destroyed their entire fleets without effort. Chancellor Thexmore was the first to enter the hall. The proud Viridian leader who had exiled humanity 26 years ago now walked with his head down. His blue skin had faded to a sickly gray, and his 4 eyes showed the exhaustion of someone who had watched his civilization crumble. Behind him came the other survivors. Admiral Vorthak limped on legs damaged when his flagship was destroyed. The insect-like Zephyrian Queen Mother clicked her mandibles nervously, no longer the confident warrior who had voted for humanity's exile. Even the peaceful Aurelian representative, Our Milan, seemed overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had happened. The war was over. Not because one side had won, but because there was nothing left to fight for. Entire star systems lay in ruins. Billions of beings had died in conflicts that achieved nothing. The proud Galactic Council had torn itself apart over resources that now floated as debris in space. Chief Negotiator Han Min Seo gestured toward the chairs around the table. She was younger than most of the alien leaders, born during the years of silence, but she spoke with the authority of someone representing the galaxy's most powerful civilization. "Please, sit," she said, in a voice that was firm but not unkind. "We have much to discuss." The alien leaders took their seats reluctantly. They had come expecting to face conquerors who would demand their surrender. Instead, they found themselves treated as equals in a room designed for cooperation rather than dominance. Thexmore spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. We did not know. When we cast your species out, we thought we were teaching primitives a lesson about civilization. We never imagined that we would become something greater than what you left behind, President Yunji asked as she took her own seat at the table. Her words were not cruel, but they carried the weight of 26 years of human achievement. Your fleets could destroy us all, admitted the Zephyrian Queen Mother. Your technology is beyond anything we understand. Why do you not simply take what you want? Dr. Choi Minho, now serving as humanities science advisor, activated a holographic display above the table. It showed images from across the galaxy. Human ships delivering medical supplies to former enemies, human engineers rebuilding cities destroyed in the war, human doctors treating wounded beings regardless of their species. Because, he said, simply, we learned something during our exile that you apparently forgot. True strength is not about what you can destroy, it's about what you can build. The hologram changed to show human space, thriving worlds where different species now live together in peace. Refugees from the war had been welcomed and given new homes. Former council worlds that had asked for human protection were flourishing under the Federation's guidance. We developed technology that could have conquered the galaxy decades ago, Mincio explained. We chose instead to perfect ways to heal it. Admiral Vorthak, the warrior who had once boasted about human extinction, looked ashamed. My people believed strength came from dominating others. We see now how wrong we were. The Krillian Empire is finished, he continued. Half our worlds are in rebellion, and the rest are too devastated to fight. I formally surrender what remains of our military to human authority. One by one, the other leaders followed his example. The Viridian hegemony, which had led the effort to exile humanity, officially disbanded its government and requested membership in the human-led Federation. The Zephyrian swarms, the Draconian Empire, and every other surviving council species made the same request. Auramilan, the Aurelian philosopher, spoke with tears in his ancient eyes. We watched our children die because of the hatred our leaders created. Your people saved us when no one else would. How can beings who show such mercy to their enemies ever forgive those who wronged them first? President Yunji looked around. The table at the leaders who had once called humans violent primitives. They were broken, humbled, and desperate. It would have been easy to make them beg, to force them to pay for their arrogance with years of servitude. Instead, she did something that shocked them all. There is nothing to forgive, she said. We are all flawed beings trying to find our way among the stars. What matters is not the mistakes we made in the past, but what we choose to build together in the future." The alien leaders stared at her in disbelief. They had expected punishment, demands for reparations, or at the very least, humiliation for their past actions. Instead, they were being offered genuine partnership. "The federation we propose will be based on equality and mutual respect," Mincio explained, calling up new holographic displays showing the proposed government structure. "Every species will have a voice. Every world will be protected. Every being will have the right to live in peace." Dr. Park Sora entered the hall, moving slowly with the aid of a walking stick. At 99 years old, she was one of the last humans who remembered the galaxy before the exile. The alien leaders recognized her immediately. The young diplomat, who had tried so hard to build bridges between their peoples. "My friends," she said, her voice still strong despite her age, "I spent my youth believing that different species could work together. You proved me wrong when you cast us out. But I never stopped believing. Today, you have the chance to prove that I was right all along." Mindthara, the Mindari philosopher, stood up from her chair. She walked slowly to where Sora stood and knelt before the elderly human woman. "Honored Dr. Park," she said, "I voted to exile your people. It was the worst mistake of my long life. Can you teach this old fool how to build the bridges I helped burn?" Sora smiled and helped Mindthara to her feet. "My dear friend, we will build them together." In the months that followed, the galaxy began to heal. Human technology reversed the genetic plagues that species had used against each other during the war. Human engineers rebuilt shattered worlds using construction methods that seemed like magic to alien observers. Human teachers shared knowledge freely, asking nothing in return but a commitment to peace. Engineer Kim Woo-jin, now ancient, but still brilliant, established schools on every Federation world. Human and alien children learned together, studying sciences and arts from dozens of different cultures. The old man who had started Project Echo in secret now watched as his dream of cooperation became reality across the galaxy. Admiral Lee Tae-ho, the diplomat who had received the original message of exile, stood in his garden on Earth. Around him, flowers from 100 different worlds grew together in harmony. In the distance, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going from the spaceport, their crews working together as friends and equals. The galaxy had learned its lesson. True civilization was not about power or dominance. It was about lifting each other up, protecting the weak, and choosing mercy over revenge. Humanity had taught them that lesson not through conquest, but through example. The council that had once knelt in surrender now stood as equal partners in a federation that stretched across the stars. And at its heart were the humans they had, once cast out, no longer silent but speaking for peace, unity, and hope.